Yeah, but you got lots of stories to tell.
Yeah, I suppose I got too many of them.
Absolutely.
Uh-oh. What else? Are you still working, Doug?
You want them to look at us?
Yes.
Like I'm talking to you? Yeah, I can talk to
Actually,
you.
Dave, why don't you come right here?
You can ask me questions. To get me
We can
started.
edit this, so do the best you
Yeah.
can. That's
Well, you
it.
want me to start from when I started, or history, or something like that?
Like that.
Actually,
Yeah.
before you get started, tell me your full name and how you spell it.
Okay, Dave Miller, Miller, West Caldwell, New Jersey,
Very good.
and we started ice racing, I think, in 1968 or 67. Started racing in Lake Ariel, Pennsylvania for the first year. Second year, they canceled racing there, so I called Saab, and they said there was two clubs that were racing, Northeast Ice Racing. I looked on the map and saw that my Rambler station wagon towing my Saab wouldn't make it there, so I decided to go with the Adirondack Racing Association. Their first race was at Lake Placid. I said, that looks too far to go. So the next weekend, their next race was Lake George. We showed up at Lake George. Now, this is my street car, 1963 Saab GT. It was a three-cylinder. And I had never raced on a full course, a road race course, with snowbanks. Now, this is my street car I drive to work. Pasted numbers on, and we went out and did our business out there. And that was the weekend that they had Channel 7 News was there, and a few other people, and the fellow from Channel News, oh, you're from New Jersey? Yeah, okay, how far from New Jersey? I said, about 15, 20 minutes. Oh, tell you what, you win this race and I'll put you on TV. I said, oh yeah, sure. First race I've ever been in, I'm gonna get killed out there. Of course, I line up and there was a car next to me, looked like it's been to a demolition derby. So we take off, and I kind of got the hang of it pretty quick. And about towards the end of the race, I'm running second, and I still wasn't getting the turns down. I'd catch the guy in the straightaway, and he'd pass me in the corners. Catch the guy, come out of the last turn, side by side. I beat him to the flag, checker flag. Guy comes over with the cameras, and they're taking pictures, and my wife's there, and we're calling everybody back in New Jersey. Hey, watch the news.
Yeah.
That night, snowstorm, nobody got out of Lake George, no races on Sunday. It was a total disaster, but that got me hooked. And from then on, Ted Ellis, he's also from New Jersey. He got me started. We both had the same cars. We came up, I guess, every race you had from then on, and had a lot of fun, brought the family. My son eventually got into ice racing, built a couple crazy cars with V6s in them, and we had a lot of fun. We don't know how we did it. My son still says he don't know how we would race all day long, go to the beer party, leave there at 11 o'clock and drive to New Jersey, and then get up and go to work the next morning. They don't do that today. But and we had some stories about towing cars home from Lake George also, with bumpers tearing off because its cars wouldn't steer anymore from the pounding they'd take all weekend. But they were great little cars. Some of the other little things that happened, I think when we went to studs, I didn't race the first race. I think I went and get some tires studded up. Went to a gas station. He says, "Oh, I have these studs. They look like they were flat on top." He said, "They call them maxi tracks." "Oh, we'll put them in. They look like they might work." Of course, I went up and they were, I think, a dominant stud at that time, and I really did real good. Next week, everybody had maxi tracks. They were the studs. But I think it took a little bit of the skill out of the racing when they went to the studs. It was a lot of fun with the rubber to ice. You really had to look for the traction on the ice, and you could move from one section to another on the ice, and you could pick up quite a bit just by moving your car around from one side of the track to the other. Is probably similar today. I haven't raced in I don't know the last race, 93 maybe.
Tell us about rubbing the snowbanks.
Oh yeah.
Slow down.
Yeah, well, we used to do that. Yeah, we'd come in and with the front wheel Saab, you could set that car up. It was so balanced with the little three-cylinder engine. You could set it up. You could be going sideways for maybe, I don't know, quite a while, and you'd nail it, and you just bounce off the snowbank with your fender, and it would just point you in the right direction. With a rear-wheel drive car, you just couldn't do that. The rear would come around, and once it got too far, you'd be spinning down the track. With the Saab, because of the balance on it, you could get it so it would just pull it whichever direction you wanted to go. It would never come around. If you started to come around, you just lock it and nail it, and it would just pull you back around straight. And very seldom, unless you really hit a snowbank hard and got it spinning, it would spin. But most of the time you could just drive it and just drive it hard, and it would go wherever you wanted. It went to the V4, and the V4 didn't handle quite as good, but it was still the car to beat in those days. Yeah, the most popular car back in those days. There were fellows from New Jersey also. They had a Ghia and a Volkswagen. They had Porsche engines in them, and they were fast. They were fast too. I think they went to the studs. They really got good. But it was a great time of the year or my life. And my son, he talks about it all the time. It's a lot of fun.
The 34 stop behind you.
Yeah, this was my last car, and it's still in pretty good shape. Clyde bought it, and he may restore it to see running. I don't know if you have a vintage class now or not.
Might.
But the car's still pretty solid. Has an engine in it. The transmission, our last race, I think it was at Lake George, we blew the transmission, so that was the only thing that's really missing on the car. But of course, you'd have to upgrade the tires and everything else that was along with it. But in racing, being from New Jersey, I was on the phone a lot because every time the little warm weather would come, we'd call, "You racing? Are you racing?" Because we got to leave like at 5 o'clock in the morning to get up there, or we'd leave the night before. And it was always a surprise when we'd get up to the lake and what we were going to run into in those days. And sometimes just getting the tow vehicles on and off the lake. Dave knows. We used to bring a pickup truck with a slide-in camper, and we'd park on the lake all night. And it would get pretty chilly. I guess 10 below zero or so sometimes up at Balsa, at the different lakes. Cassayune, it would get pretty cold. But we had little heaters and big sleeping bags and save a few bucks because it was the greatest racing you could go because what did we pay, $15 for the weekend? I think it was $15 for the weekend. You raced all day long.
Just wait for that plane.
Okay.
If you could start with,
showing me like when the cost was, the biggest cost was your gasoline, probably getting back and forth. You could go out and run a car, $150 car, you could go out and race. And I had my old Saabs I would pick up, and you just put different engines in different cars. But you'd pay $15 for racing. You'd go to a beer party that night, which had food to eat, I think, too. And then you get these beautiful trophies. On Saturday, they would have these trophies, regular car trophies. But we used to try harder on Sunday because they'd give out silver bowls. People couldn't believe that I would go out and race this car and bring these things home. And I still have them all over my house. People come in and say, "Where do you get all that?" I said, "We won all those when we were racing." And it was really unbelievable how you guys didn't make any money doing it. I don't know how they did. Yeah, probably didn't, right? But they had a lot of fun. But a lot of the races, we raced with the temperatures that would raise and lower. You'd be running in the water a lot too. And one race, Lake George, I was running a 3-cylinder, and I was a D car, I guess. And I was up front with the modifieds because everybody was braking. Because down the back straightaway there was an opening in the ice about a foot wide, and you come down there flat out. Of course, fast as the car, you're on the rubber to ice still. And I hit that thing, and I made it all around to the last lap. And when I hit it, the tire went flat and the rim flattened. So that's the only way I could move the car. When the car would go, it'd go bloop, bloop. And that's how I went across the start-finish line and won the race. Bloop, bloop. And I think it was Huck Spaulding or somebody who was second. And I think he had to stop to change the tire. And he came out, and I beat him across the finish line. I think they were going to protest me because they said, "Oh, you're supposed to come in when you have a flat tire." I said, well, I had to go across the line to finish to come in. Yeah. But we won that race. That was a lot of fun. There was a lot of crazy stuff in those days. But and my sons, when they were growing up, we used to bring them up to the track, and when they were big enough to see over the steering wheel, of course, we used to take them out on the track, and they do a little driving around, and they caught the bug also, and they both raced. on the ice. And my son now, he's still involved with cars out in California.
You raced in the summer also.
Right, we started in 1980. Oh yeah. Well, the first time, my first instructor almost jumped out of the car because I came into the first turn down at Summit Point, and I was going to set the car up, and he said, "No, you don't do that. You just drive it around the corner. You don't do that." And Kirk, my son, the first race school that he was in, he had a Saab 900 down at Summit Point also, and he came into a corner, and the car would go sideways, and the workers would all jump ready to run out and pick the car up, and he'd bring it around, just keep on going. I said, don't worry about him in the rain, because it'll go good. But it's been a great time, and my wife enjoyed it. We got into summer racing, SCCA, in '84, and I ran a Sonnet, and then I went to show 'em stock because I was under the car more than I was in the car. So we decided we wanted to race more than play with it, and went to Honda. And then we made the runoffs, went down to Atlanta, ran down there, wound up qualified 18th, wound up 7th. And then we ran a couple more Hondas, went to a Mitsubishi Mirage Turbo. And then we went to the Neon Challenge. We raced in that. The last years that my racing was with the Neon Challenge. And I think that was the most fun because we raced at more tracks all over the country. We went to Road America out in Wisconsin, 4.5 mile track, beautiful track.
Sounds like you're pretty familiar with clubs and tracks.
Yeah.
How would you compare AMEC and the group with?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I think I got the most fun in racing with the ice racing because it was family. Our whole family was there with us, and we could do it like 4 or 5 weekends out of the year. It wouldn't kill you for dollar-wise. You could run and have a lot of fun doing it, and they always had the track ready, and they had plenty of personnel that would work the track. I mean, you got to have the corner work. I couldn't believe they would. You know, I'm in the car. I got my heater on. I'm racing, and a lot of the corner workers are standing out there at 0-degree weather. And God bless them. You know, that's the only way we could race. Though you didn't have the workers, you could never race. You could never run a race. And they really did a great job. We had a lot of fun with them. But
Tell me a little bit about the camaraderie.
Yeah, when Ted and I came up from New Jersey, I think they looked at us like a little funny. What are you doing all the way up here from New Jersey? And we would always have a solid car. Up in New York State, they had a lot of snow, a lot of rust on, a lot of salt on the road, so their bottoms, cars would rust out. And we would bring these cars up with solid cars. Almost every year after racing, I would sell the car. Sometimes I would sell the engine or transmission. Most of the time, I'd sell the body because people would want them, so they could run the next year. I ran a car. My car broke. I was in the points runnings, and at Boston Spa, somebody lent me their car, and it was a little slushy. After the third lap, there was so much slush in the car that I couldn't push the pedals down because all the floors were rotted out, and the stuff was coming in. I finally came in, and they're laughing their heads off. They figured I wouldn't make it that far, but they're saying